The brave snail who dreamed big fairy tale. Every big and small town, there live a multitude of very different inhabitants. They all live their own lives, making plans and overcoming obstacles day by day. Some do so just to survive, to find food or a roof over their heads. Others do so in pursuit of their big dreams, even if they themselves are very, very small. This was certainly the case for a snail named Curl, whose small size didn't stop him from dreaming big. You see, Curl was born in a low-lying area, a small ravine that had formed where a dried-up stream once ran. It's not that he didn't love his home, quite the contrary, he knew every bush and every rock in that ravine. He had explored all the trails and found shelter under every stone that had once been washed by the running stream. Although he was not afraid of bad weather himself, the snail carried his own home with him everywhere he went. Yes, that's right. A whole little house fit on his back. Losing one's home is the snail's worst nightmare. For any snail, it is inevitable doom. In addition to this remarkable feature, Curl had an amazing ability that other members of his family could boast of. The snail's house grows with it. Curl thought it was very convenient and was genuinely pleased when he noticed that the trail of slime he left behind him had become longer. Despite this wonderful feature, snails never grew larger than they are naturally supposed to be, and remained quite small compared to other inhabitants of the town. As for the dream of our little snail, it was much bigger than the house of the biggest snail in town. Cole dreamed of seeing the city from above. To examine every house in every street, to see how far the city landscapes stretch and how big the world around is. The problem was that no snail had ever seen anything higher than the ravines and valleys. That's just how it was. Snails are very slow, small creatures that, unfortunately, cannot fly. But Cole had an idea. And he had been thinking about it for more than one day. Everyone in the ravine knew about his big dreams. And, of course, they laughed at him. How can a snail climb high? How can a snail overcome a height of several hundred meters? It's just funny, the bees hissed, circling above the snail's head. You'll never get out of here, the dragonflies barked, teasing the snail with their wings. You'll perish. You'll be crushed, the caterpillars droned, building themselves cocoons that it was easy for all of them to taunt. They know how to fly. Bees build hives high up in the trees. Dragonflies are agile and fast, flying wherever they want. And if caterpillars don't get caught by a larger animal and manage to spin their cocoon, they will soon turn into butterflies and also fly away far away. These thoughts made the snail sad. But Curl continued to dream, and one day luck smiled on him. Next to his native bush, right behind the rocks where the snail was born, an old slug lived. He often told stories he heard from his grandmother, who heard them from her grandfather, who heard them from his aunt. The essence of the stories was that once upon a time, slugs also had homes on their backs, but then something happened and they lost their homes. Some of the old insects were convinced that it happened because slugs ate too much, much more than they needed. And they became so fat that they no longer fit in their own shells. That's how they ended up without their homes, but that was just one of the legends that few people paid attention to anymore. Everyone had grown accustomed to the slugs as they were, and few remembered what they used to be like. So one day, an old slug named Barney let slip that when he was very young, his grandmother, the same one who told him stories that her grandfather told her, took him on the most amazing journey of his life. They had to cross 2 streets, crawl through 3 blocks, and climb up the steepest staircase that led to the most beautiful tree in the city. From this tree they collected water, pollen, and small crumbs of bark. As Barney the slug remembered, it was the most delicious bark in the world. The flowers of this tree were enormous, at first resembling elongated white seashells, and then opening up into a bright pink color. The tree had another amazing feature. It stood on the highest point of the hill, which was reached by that very steep staircase. And of course, whoever managed to climb to the top of this tree could enjoy an incredible view of the city, see it in all its beauty, from a bird's-eye view. This was exactly what Curl wanted more than anything in the world, and now he knew that the path to his cherished dream lay first through 2 streets, then through 3 blocks. After that, he would have to climb up the hill on the steepest staircase, which was not so easy to find, and, in the end, climb up the tree with incredibly beautiful bright pink flowers, which at the beginning of their blooming looked very much like white shells. The main thing is not to mix anything up. Curl started to wait. He was waiting for wet weather, or even better, a good spring rain. Snails love rain, or more precisely, walks after it. There is nothing better than damp soil for any snail. And that day came. From early morning, gray clouds descended on the city, the sky frowned and began to resemble a gloomy old man who was terribly dissatisfied with something. First, he scared the city with the rumbles of thunder. And a few minutes later, a powerful downpour broke out, watering everything around with cool rainwater. Curl decided, it's time. Cool streams followed the snail as soon as he emerged onto the busy street. Dangers lurked everywhere. Dogs walking with their owners constantly tried to taste the snail, cats delicately touched him with their paws, and another terrifying companion was an unsuspecting person's step. But Curl was very agile for a snail, choosing moments and places that allowed him to approach the traffic light as quickly as possible. Crossing the street is even more dangerous than crawling on the sidewalk. The chances of survival are negligible. But Curl did not want to give up. His first traffic light in life. The green light is about to come on. Come on. Oh! Just as Curl crawled up to the edge of the curb, the signal light treacherously quickly changed to yellow. He can't crawl. The traffic lights are not designed for snails. Curl pondered. He looked around. He needed help. He needed transportation. As soon as he thought about it, a bicycle wheel came into line right next to him. More precisely, a rail bicycle stood next to him. He could only see the front wheel. He can't miss this chance. The cyclist scowled, as he did not manage to cross on green. Now he would have to wait for a new signal. And this was the perfect opportunity for Curl. Without a second thought, he crawled up to the bicycle tire, and just managed to grab one of the spokes as the wheel slowly began to spin. And then it spun faster. Curl miraculously held on tighter to the spoke and pressed himself against the base of the wheel. His head was spinning and swoosh! The snail hit in the shell and felt suspended in the air for a second. Then it hit a solid pavement. Pavement. Hooray! Cole cautiously crawled out of the shell and looked around. It had been thrown against the wall of an old house, right into a clump of low dandelions. What luck! It was able to ride a bicycle instead of being crushed by it. Probably no snail had done that before. Ahead of Cole was another traffic light, which was relatively easy to reach. It crawled under the wall of the house, periodically hiding in dandelions. And to every new flower, it mentally said, "Thank you," for being on its way. At the next traffic light, Cole performed the same trick, but this time it was lucky enough to climb onto a child's scooter. Well, let's say it was lucky. It was much easier for it to climb, but the child almost crushed it with his foot while crossing the pedestrian crossing. Cole had to climb to a safe spot at the brake mount. It flew with the kid for half a block until he stopped at his home. The little owner parked his scooter at the bike stand and went up the stairs to his porch. And Cully, happy that he was still in one piece, crawled further towards his dream. He easily covered 1.5 miles, still overcoming his way under the changes of old houses. Once he had to hide in his house from a pesky cat, and at the end of his journey he met an old acquaintance, Dragonfly. She widened her already huge eyes at him and crackled, "Is it you, dreamy snail? How come you're still alive?" "I just am," Cully replied simply. "You'll disappear." "Come back," she crackled, waving her thin wings. "Born to crawl, you can't fly." "I have my own way, my own," Cully answered and crawled forward. He never once thought about giving up and turning back. He had been dreaming for so long. If it wasn't meant to be for him to fulfill his dream, he would know that he had done everything he could. That's much better than dreaming and doing nothing. He thought about all of this and slowly moved forward. It was getting dark. It's dangerous to crawl at night. Suddenly his belly felt that the pavement had changed to another surface. It became cooler and harder. Shaking his antennae, Curl lifted his eyes. Wow! There it is! The coolest staircase in the city! He was almost there. As much as Curl wanted to get to the coveted tree as soon as possible, he decided that he would overcome the next stretch of the journey tomorrow. But for now, he needed a reliable place to spend the night. He didn't want to be trampled or eaten before the most important event in his life, he thought. Cole crawled to the base of the stairs and felt a hollow on the very first step. It was damp and dark. Perfect for a snail to fall asleep. He fell asleep right away. Snails get tired too. The end of the first part of our story. See you soon.